¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Monday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Echo Resto Dragon. It is indeed Monday. Yes, the new profile picture. The new profile picture was made. You can actually see it on Twitter. Who made the profile picture? I highly recommend you go follow them on Twitter. And they are on Twitch at least. They're Cheeseburger Freedom Eagle. That's who made this profile picture, which I think is pretty cool. I just got the notification. Cool. Clarence. Yeah, indeed. Another day in America where another school shooting, 3 dead including the shooter. Yep. I think it was in Louisiana. That's hard to keep up. Who's going to be in Liz in office longer than Liz? Who knows? But yes, there is a new prime minister. St. Louis. There we go. Sorry, St. Louis. I'm sorry. Yeah. How's it going, everybody? There you go. Garlic Artist Fartist at Twitter. On Twitter. That's who made this, that's who made this new profile picture. Yep. Thanks for the shout out again. Yep, and there he is, folks. Thank you, I appreciate it. All right, let me reset some of my scenes here, and we should be good. Actually, no, I think we are good. Yeah, I think we are good.
New allegation.
Oh, Jesus. That is a very loud ad. They gave me the Ali O megaphone. Nice. Cool. Yeah, they are very talented. And a quick update, it looks like jury selection is going on for the civil trial for Donald Trump. We'll see how that goes. Alright, folks, since my time is a little bit limited, I think we should start, yeah? We've got our changing climate video, lawsuit against company that makes rent-setting software, Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas temporarily blocks Graham's election case testimony. Former police officer pleads guilty in George Floyd's case. And student debt relief moving full speed ahead. Let's get it started. Yeah, I saw that. That was pretty funny. Ted got the finger. I think at a baseball game. Didn't he get like the finger at a baseball game? That was pretty funny. That was pretty funny if I do say so myself. Happy Monday. Welcome.
Our world is on fire. And around that world, the reality that our future might be unlivable is sinking in. Across race, class, gender, and ability, the powerlessness we feel in the face of the climate crisis is clawing towards the surface in painful ways.
I definitely suffer from climate anxiety.
I was affected by climate anxiety pretty early on.
And at that point, I felt like I was doing this by myself.
We are entering into the age of climate anxiety, an era where our global actions to address climate change are failing to meet its scale.
Yeah, like on every single level, by pretty much any metric you can think of, we're not doing okay. we're not doing okay.
We bear witness to the inaction of those with the most power to prevent and prepare for catastrophe. We who care must live with a creeping sense of dread, sadness, and anger about the potential of an unlivable future. This is the story of climate anxiety, what it is, why it matters, and what we can do about it. This video is made possible by CuriosityStream and Nebula. If you don't know by now, I have over 20 bonus videos and extended editions that can be found only on the Creator Made.
True. Our Green Party is currently in power, and the first thing they dropped in coalition discussions were their green values. Boo. Boo.
Streaming platform Nebula, like my exclusive video on how we build sustainable cities, or the one on description. Also grappling as we wake up to the reality that the climate crisis is here, is tearing apart our world, and is only getting worse if we don't take transformative action right now. We are also grappling with the intense emotional landscape that comes with those facts.
Yeah, I don't know about that. We've all got our problems.
Across the world, many who bear witness to the headlines or experience those headlines firsthand are also struggling with eco-anxiety, a concept that over the last 15 years, psychologists and mental health researchers have come to define as a chronic fear of environmental doom. Or as environmental philosopher Glenn Albrecht defines it, the generalized sense that the ecological foundations of existence are in the process of collapse. And climate anxiety is a subset of eco-anxiety. It's the fear...
But it's a very legitimate... I think it comes from a very legitimate place, is what I'm trying to say. The protester on NBC, the viewer shouting on the show with Ted Cruz about climate change. We're shouting at Ted Cruz? They were climate protesters? Cool.
Grief, stress, anger, and exhaustion you feel thinking about how there might not be a future for your kids, grandkids, or even yourself because of unchecked climate change. However, those in the mental health field have emphasized that these are totally natural responses to a world on fire. We who are the climate and eco-anxious are grappling with, as eco-anxiety expert Panu Pakala describes, the uncertainty, unpredictability, and uncontrollability of environmental destruction. We are waking up to the reality that our future might be much darker than our present. For the oppressed majority who've witnessed and experienced the world-ending violence of racial, colonial, and capitalist annihilation, this is nothing new. Marginalized groups have been wrestling with the dread, fear, and anxiety of existential threats for centuries. The privileged, economically secure white communities, whom until now have been relatively sheltered from the prospect of an unlivable future, are now having to face this anxiety and dread head on. But these...
Well, to be fair, I wouldn't watch The View for my political takes. Only the people paying attention to facts have the anxiety. There are many people who remain blissfully unaware and unconcerned about the climate. True! Did you see the Merrick Garland show today? No, I didn't realize there was a show.
These intense emotions we feel are not flaws or some disease. In fact, they're just the opposite. They reveal a deep sense of empathy and compassion within for our environment and community. If left unprocessed, however, anxiety surrounding the climate crisis or ecological degradation can easily slip into doomerism, apathy, or nihilism, which is why understanding and coping with these hard emotions is crucial. As Britt Ray, author of Generation Dread, explains,
the trick is to be able to then supportively move through the feelings so that you don't get stuck in any one dire place and end up on a train of thinking that equates to doomism.
So not only is recognizing and coping with our climate anxieties crucial for longevity in our activism, but if left unchecked, it can lead to doomism, an emotional state that is easily preyed on by eco-fascist solutions. While there is certainly more at play, we've already seen this unrecognized eco-distress bubble up in the manifestos of the El Paso shooter, as well as the Christchurch shooter, sentiments which are echoed in the calls for border closures and forced sterilizations. We need to care for our community's health when it comes to facing the climate crisis, because if we don't, our suppressed emotions can burn us out, or even worse, bubble up in violent ways. We'll get to how we can come to grips with our climate anxiety a little later, but first, we need to understand who is experiencing climate anxiety and dive a little deeper into its root causes.
Yes, we have spies too. I don't know what the big deal is.
For each R-changing climate video I make, I sit down, turn on my computer, and consume the apocalypse. Whether it's disaster capitalism or the fashion industry, I've spent countless hours reading and watching how our racist, fossil fuel addicted capitalist economy is tearing itself apart. It's hard to feel happy or optimistic when you read about massive ice sheets on the verge of collapse and then read how fossil fuel companies are posting record profits. I frequently fear for the future and grieve the damage that climate change has already foisted on this world. But I also know that I'm not alone. A 2019 poll by the American Psychological Association found that 47% of respondents aged 18 to 34 said that their anxiety about the climate was affecting their daily lives. While a global study of 10,000 young people aged 16 to 25 found that 84% were at least moderately worried about climate change, and 45% said that their feelings about climate change negatively affected their daily life and functioning. Climate anxiety is widespread and is disproportionately affecting the youngest generation, a generation whose very future seems uncertain. Often this climate anxiety is not just tied up in the collapse of a future world. It is exacerbated by
because it's their future. So, well, yeah, of course. Of course, they're the ones who have the bigger stake in it. But how are there still 16% who aren't concerned? Yeah, these people don't understand the full scope of what's going on, I assume.
Perceived failures of governments and leaders to adequately address this crisis at the scale it requires. This was the impetus for Greta Thunberg's school strike. It's what drove activist Vanessa Nakate to speak out, and it's what's propelling millions of people towards climate movements across the world. We are living in an era where a climate crisis is already driving extinction-level events and killing millions, and yet our global leaders are doing very little to prevent it. The anxiety that I and many others feel as a result of this inaction and uncertainty makes sense, and this climate distress is made even more acute for the survivors of climate disasters. As the climate crisis gets worse, the number of those who must live with the trauma of hurricanes tearing apart their homes and families.
True. So, yeah, I get what you're saying, Maple Leaf Dragon. I don't know if they're just simply taking into account short-term profits because they really don't care about anything else, and they kind of have this idea that they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out, and well, that's not really how that works. It's mostly just this short-term thinking. There's a hurricane hitting Mexico right now. Is there? Probably. I don't know. You're gonna have to. Oh yeah. Actually, yeah. Wasn't that last week though? Hurricane in Mexico, I guess. Oh yeah, it just made landfall actually. Rosalind. And there's already 3 people dead. Jesus Christ.
Droughts rendering whole livelihoods unfeasible and wildfires burning hometowns to piles of ash will only grow. 4 months after Hurricane Harvey flooded Houston, a survey found that 18% of respondents were experiencing serious psychological distress. While in the wake of Hurricane Maria, 7% of Puerto Rican students surveyed displayed signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. And as the world heats up and the atmosphere fills with carbon dioxide, it will be even more difficult to deal with the emotional scars of climate change than it is right now.
Yeah, can you imagine? The type of stuff that we're seeing now, the type of stuff that we're seeing now will be nothing if we choose to continue to go down the path that we're on. I don't know about the US, but in many countries, not climate-friendly processes are often still heavier subsidized in comparison to more green solutions. Right. But yes, that's another good point. These industries are heavily subsidized, which is the only reason why they're in the position that they are on. But the problem is, again, another facet of the problem, I should say, is that these very same people also lobby politicians to maintain that so that they continue to be the status quo, regardless of what impact they have on the planet. that is just another facet of the many issues that we're we're experiencing. But yes, I do think that that's another point.
In part, it's because it'll be physically harder to think in hotter climates. Study after study has found that warmer temperatures lead to worse mental health outcomes. And even our ability to do basic thinking could decrease by 25% by the end of the century due to increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And as temperatures rise, so too does the rate of those taking their own lives. This paper found that unmitigated climate change could cause an estimated 9,000 to 40,000 additional suicides by 2050 in just Mexico and the United States alone. These immensely turbulent times are leaving us with turbulent emotional landscapes. We are anxious because the world is burning right in front of us, and those with power seem to be doing very little about it. We are anxious because our whole world has been upended by disaster, and we have very few tools at our disposal to process it all. This anxiety and the complex emotional landscape that rises from it is, as Britt Ray notes, hard to grapple with inside a culture that values capital over compassion and the well-being of the poor, the other, and the not yet born. You've seen it before. A climate activist sits down for an interview with a cable news network ready for hard questions, and instead the TV host shames them for their carbon footprint.
Because you're guzzling and burning up the atmosphere with your TV, and you don't want to admit it because it makes you look like a rank hypocrite.
We are stuck with individualized solutions to the climate crisis, and the pressure to be the answer to this massive world-altering predicament crushes our mental health. Since the 1970s, when the environmental movement exploded onto the scene, the answer to our ecological problems like plastic pollution, carbon dioxide emissions, and water scarcity have been increasingly presented as problems that can be solved by many individuals changing their consumption habits. Recycle more, drive less, shower less, fly less, or even have fewer kids. These are the impossible choices that we are presented with when we seek any meaningful...
Now, just to be clear, doing like small individual choices like these are still good, and if you can, you should. The whole point is that if you have the means, if you have the ability to do something, anything, little by little every day, or encourage others to do something, that is always just a good thing. But that doesn't take away the fact that the problem here is more than just one individual. The problem right here can't just be solved and put on the shoulders on one individual.
Ecological transformation. Because in a fossil-fueled society, there are few viable alternatives to fossil fuels. For the vast majority who live paycheck to paycheck, cutting out fossil fuels is an immensely difficult endeavor. So before we can even begin to advocate for climate action, we're told to be perfect zero-impact individuals in an economy that makes that lifestyle impossible. And the fossil fuel industry likes it that way. Companies like ExxonMobil and BP have spent decades and millions of dollars pushing the burden of change away from their factories and onto the individual. And the plastic industry, which by the way is just another form of fossil fuels, pushed heavily for recycling campaigns like this one.
Yes, that never actually ended up materializing. I mean, recycling is such a meme, even though we should. Even though, of course, we should, I'm just saying that it is a meme to think that that's what's going to solve the problem. Just look at the costs in lives, money, and huge disruption that can last for years. Yep. 5% of carbon emission are from the U.S. military. I wouldn't be surprised. The U.S. military's footprint, so to speak, is pretty massive. Asking for them to spend a little now is like asking them to swallow a uranium-laced chocolate. True. The Republicans don't want green energy at all. True, and some Democrats too. True. But this isn't only just the Republicans, although they're the biggest problem. They're the biggest problem.
Pollution. People can stop it.
So they wouldn't have to deal with the mess they themselves created. This individualization of the climate crisis means that corporations can pollute to high hell and then turn around and blame us for using their product. As journalist Eleanor Cummins writes in an article for The New Republic, when consumers are told that they are equally to blame for the climate crisis, but face a lack of options for actually leading a more climate-friendly life, it's all too easy to convince people to feel guilty merely for living. We are trying to solve public crises with personal solutions. The highly siloed reality of neoliberal capitalism urges us to shrink our carbon footprint, and when we inevitably fail in that task...
Right, and like the whole carbon footprint thing is already like a meme in itself. Single stream recycling was incredibly effective in making people think their consumption is good. Correct. Recycling can and should be $1 trillion industry and would be massively profitable. Yeah, Well, it does. Yeah, even if the Dems give up or not, it doesn't matter. The point is that even though like the Republicans are just like obviously discounted right off the bat, it's not just them. So much that's recycled is actually thrown into a landfill. True. I think like 90% of plastic is new plastic. Or is it like 90% doesn't get recycled? I forget what's the exact stat. Yeah, exactly. Or it's you know, and it ends up in the ocean where it joins the massive like plastic islands that are in the oceans out there. Do people feel guilty or people give up? I don't know. You have to ask people. I do not know the answer to that question. Some people feel guilty, and that's a good thing. But instead of, if you feel guilty, then there's a reason for that, because you know it's wrong. Plastic degrades when it's recycled, so you can't make a plastic bottle out of a plastic bottle like you can with aluminum cans. Yep. We really should be using hemp plastic for all this. All these like single-use plastics really should be made out of hemp.
We're shamed and
recyclables that often get collected as recyclables often make their way to landfills. Anyways, true. You guys nonstop attack the US. How about addressing China and India's pollution? Hey, what aboutism? First of all, we have been cleaning up our acts since the 1960s. You can't even see across the street in Beijing. Well, we live here. So, yeah, I'm going to criticize the United States. The United States is also one of the historically the biggest emitter as well. So we've got our own issues to solve here at home before we can turn the finger and be like, well, what about them? We have a responsibility to act right ourselves. To do the right thing is irrelevant as to whether or not, even if they choose not to, we have to do the right thing regardless. That's such an asinine way of thinking. How old are you? 5? How old are you? Like, really, 5? I don't want to do the good thing because he's not doing the good thing. So then I shouldn't be good. What a child.
Guilted for our failure. We are given the impossible task of somehow already ridding ourselves of fossil fuels before we even begin to dismantle the fossil fuel industry. And we have to do it alone. No wonder we feel so guilty and anxious. Something I've come to realize is that this is an excellent way to crush a movement before it starts. If everyone is too busy pointing fingers at each other and shaming themselves for not being perfect, they won't notice the smokestacks pumping carbon dioxide into the air all around them. This is how the fossil fuel industry wins.
No, we're not doing the right thing. No, we're not doing the right thing. We are very much not doing the right thing.
Disasters, but we must also struggle with the guilt and shame of failing to carry out an unfeasible solution. The intense emotions that bubble up from that failure breed apathy, inaction, and burnout, which is why, in addition to looking towards external climate solutions, we also need to look inward to grapple with and move through the emotional turbulence that the climate crisis causes. Scrolling through Twitter, Facebook, or even our changing climate videos can be a lonely endeavor. It can be immensely hard to read articles or watch videos on the climate chaos unfolding around us and have no outlet to process the emotions that come up. I've said it once, but I'll say it again because this is important. The grief, fear, anger, terror, guilt, dread, and sadness that you feel are normal responses to bearing witness to the environmental destruction and injustices bearing down on our world. Really, these are signs that you care deeply for the world and everyone in it. While these emotions can bring you to dark places, they can also be wonderfully generative. As Britt Ray writes in Generation Dread, it is precisely when we turn towards tough feelings and have the support to process them that we unlock our capacity for strength and resolve to act. Tapping into these emotions can, when processed and given space, be superfuel for the external action that needs to take place in order to prevent the worst case scenarios of climate change. But how do we process and move through these emotions? Before I answer that, I want to say that I'm not a therapist or mental health expert. So if you are experiencing climate anxiety and eco-distress acutely, please take care of yourself and don't hesitate to seek climate-aware support. I've left some resources for you down in the description if you need it. Understanding why we feel eco-anxiety is just one step in the process of what...
Well, it's not about opinions. It's whatever the consensus is as to what will solve the climate crisis. And there's a lot of things that we need to do. The biggest one is reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. I mean, that's just like one of the biggest things. We've got to reduce our fossil fuels. Period. Full stop. We have to. We have to eliminate any new fossil fuel projects. We have to invest and reorganize our priorities to set up as much renewable energy as possible, wherever possible, as quickly as possible, in as many ways as possible. That's really one of the first things, or at least one of the things that we can do on a broad scale right now if we chose to. We also have to address the agriculture industry when it comes to, just to kind of add on to the pollution question.
What psychologist Caroline Hickman calls internal activism, a process of looking inward towards the grief, anxiety, and depression that comes with climate change and learning how to incorporate those very intense emotions into our lives. Hickman and Ray envision this as a long process of peaks and valleys. Instead of trying to push down your anxiety or despair when it arises, sit with it, acknowledge it, and think about where.
Yep. 100%. Not neglectable 14% of CO2 emissions through livestock. Yep.
It comes from. This process strengthens your emotional intelligence, so that the next time you feel these feelings, you might better understand what they are, how you feel them, and why you're feeling them. The goal is not to rid yourself of these emotions, but to understand them, so that the next time they arise, they're a little less painful. This work is not a short sit-down. It can be mentally and physically draining and even painful. It's a continuous process, which is why we also need methods of coping to expand what psychiatrist Dan Siegel calls our window of tolerance. These are tools like meditation.
No, I'm not familiar.
Gratitude journaling, walking, exercise, and mindfulness practices that help us better tolerate uncertainty. All of these activities expand our capacity to sit with the lows and maybe even wield dark emotions as fuel for joyous and pleasurable actions. But a large part of navigating eco-anxiety is navigating the uncertainty of the future.
Yes, the parallel crisis is the use of water, which is all connected. Yes, that is very true. That is very true.
While the future might hold apocalyptic doom, that future is uncertain. And that uncertainty, as psychologist Matthew Adams argues, is one of the most generative places for new stories to take shape about how we might like to live. Britt Ray talks about holding these two possibilities in our head in what she calls binocular vision. She suggests not to ignore the gravity and despair of an apocalyptic future, but instead to hold that truth and also the opposite truth that we can never know the future for sure, and that radical transformation can always be moments away. In holding these two visions simultaneously in our head, we can foster a balancing act that uses both fear and hope to create a sustainable emotional landscape. Ultimately, this internal struggle cannot happen behind closed doors. Sitting with strong emotions can be agonizing. We as humans need support, whether that comes from one-on-one climate-aware therapy, public spaces to mourn and express anxiety over the climate crisis like the climate cafes popping up all over the world, or groups like the Good Grief Network that help us process and move through these strong emotions to become more resilient people in the face of the climate crisis. So while we engage our internal selves, we need to reach out to like-minded community to not only find support, but to also channel our emotional energy into transformative action. As people wake up to their own eco-anxieties, it's tempting to search for quick fixes to transform these raw emotions of anxiety, sadness, and anger into happiness. Often activism and action are championed as the cure to climate anxiety. While external action is essential to finding a strong support network and taking...
Graylio, how's it going? Fedbot, the best bot. Did see Trump try to claim that while he was in office, we had zero inflation? Damn. Wow. Amazing. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Quite a rap sheet there. We'll see.
Part in meaningful change. If we aren't simultaneously processing our anxiety and grief, we are merely patching over wounds that will inevitably bubble up to the surface. So when we try to use action as an emotional salve, those unrecognized emotions can quickly lead to burnout when there's a defeat or the action fails.
True.
Just diving into external activism as a shortcut to happiness leaves us brittle in a highly stressful time. We need internal activism in order to build long-lasting and highly resilient external action and movements. All of this is not to say that you shouldn't join climate action campaigns and movements for justice before you look inward. Just the opposite. Finding a like-minded, supportive community working towards a future you want to live in can be amazingly healing. But I want to emphasize that this is just one prong of a two-pronged approach to navigating climate anxiety. But taking action can be scary. Sometimes just finding and picking a group that's on the ground doing the work can be paralyzing. How do I know which one aligns with my values? Which groups are actually creating change? Where do I plug in? And what can I even bring to the table? I have all of these questions and fears too. And my advice is just to start. Ask yourself what you're good at, what you...
For obvious reasons, we can't do that. Alex Zalia. 8 trillion on new debt, making the rich richer. True.
you find joy doing and what you're interested in. Most likely one of your hobbies or interests are climate related, and there's probably a climate action group that needs your skills and passion. No group will perfectly be on the same page as you, but it opens you up to so many emotional and action-oriented possibilities by just joining. If you're young and in the US, maybe consider finding a local Sunrise Movement chapter. And if you aren't liking their politics, you'll probably find another group along the way who aligns better with your values. If you have a passion for clothes, consider joining groups like Fashion Revolution, who are working to dismantle the fast fashion industry. If you have a passion for food, consider lending your support to a food sovereignty program. Taking action can be an amazingly generative process. It strengthens the bonds between you and other people while striving for change in your community and environment. To make societal change, to forge climate revolution, we have to come to grips with our complex emotional landscapes. This means engaging in both internal and external activism in order to expand your emotional intelligence, increase your window of tolerance, and live with the uncertainty of a world on fire, all while finding the support and community you need through action. When we process our emotions surrounding climate change, we might actually find purpose and longevity in our endeavor to dismantle fossil-fueled capitalism and erect an ethical and ecological alternative in its stead. I am still on the journey of internal activism and have a long way to go. It's not easy and can be painful, but these emotions are what make me and you human. They're what shows we care. So be easy on yourself and know that you're not alone. A word of caution, however. Over the last 2 decades, there's been a significant rise in self-care fixes for anxiety and mental health offered up under the banner of wellness. Whether you're burnt out or anxious, there always seems to be a fast fix that you can buy to soothe the pain away. The commodification of mental health and wellness is pervasive. Unfortunately, a full-blown critique of the industry is outside the scope of this video.
Sorry. Why would I vote for somebody who consistently says anti-Semitic stuff? And who has like far-right politics? Why would I vote for somebody like that? We literally just had 4 years of a celebrity president, celebrity far-right president. I wouldn't want another 4 years of another one. I'm good.
Which is why I made a whole nother video unraveling the dangers of the wellness industrial complex and put it on Nebula. You can find that video and 20 other extended and bonus OCC videos that are not on YouTube over on Nebula. If you don't know by now, a group of educational creators on YouTube team.
All right. I think we get the point. Excellent stuff. All right, let's talk about this. Company that makes rent-setting software. Yes, early voting has started. Depending on your state, it may already be underway. So check your state if you live in the United States. Check when is early voting. Check where you're supposed to vote. Make sure that you're registered. Check the registration. Make sure it's valid is what I'm trying to say. And grab a friend or two. Yeah, Kanye is a joke, but not really. The company that makes rent-setting software for apartments accused of collusion. First of all, Why is there companies that exist that make rent-setting software? Why is that even a thing? Okay. Texas-based RealPage worked with some of the nation's largest landlords to create a cartel to raise rents, says a lawsuit filed just days after ProPublica published its investigation into the company. Renters filed a lawsuit this week alleging that the company that makes price-setting software for apartments and 9 of the nation's biggest property managers formed a cartel to artificially inflate rents in violation of federal law. Wow. The lawsuit was filed days after ProPublica published an investigation raising concerns that the software sold by Texas-based RealPages is potentially pushing rent prices above competitive levels, facilitating price fixing, or both. Cool. Very good system. Nice. The proposed class action lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court in San Diego. In an email, RealPage representatives said that the company strongly denies the allegations and will vigorously defend against the lawsuit. Yeah, except I don't trust you. She declined to comment further, saying that the company does not comment on pending litigation. The 9 property managers named in the lawsuit did not respond immediately to a request for comment. They include some of the nation's largest landlords, such as Greystar, Lincoln Property Company, Equity Residential, and Mid-America Apartment Communities and FPI Management, which together manage hundreds of thousands of apartments. 4 of the 5 renters named in the suit were Greystar tenants, a 5th rented from Security Properties, and their apartments were located in San Diego, San Francisco, and 2 Washington state cities, Redmond and Everett. The lawsuit accused the property managers and RealPage of forming a cartel to artificially inflate the price of and artificially decrease the supply and output of multifamily residential real estate leases from competitive levels. Not surprised. RealPage's software uses an algorithm to churn through a trove of data each night to suggest daily prices for available rental units. The software uses only information about the apartment being priced and the property where it is located, but also private data on what nearby competitors are charging in rent. The software considers actual rent paid to those rivals, not just what they are advertising. Sure, buddy. ProPublica's investigation found that the software's design and reach have raised questions among experts about whether it is helping the country's biggest landlord, indirectly coordinating pricing, potentially in violation of federal law. In one neighborhood, in downtown Seattle, ProPublica found that 70% of more than 9,000 apartments were controlled by just 10 property managers who all used RealPage pricing software in at least some of their buildings. Jesus Christ. Yeah, this shit should be illegal. Well, I mean, if they're found, in the court of law, if they're found guilty, yeah, this would be very illegal. None of this should even be a thing. The fact that they're like massive landlord corporations is just wild to me. This should not even be a thing to begin with. This was inevitable because holdings companies keep sucking up all the housing, so it's becoming unfeasible to manage without software like this. Right, and then conveniently, this also helps the big the huge landlords. Yeah, none of this should exist. Period. RealPage told ProPublica the company uses aggregate market data from a variety of sources in a legally compliant manner. The company also said that landlords who use employees to manually set prices typically conduct phone surveys to check competitors' rents, which the company said could result in anti-competitive behavior. RealPage's revenue management solutions prioritize a property's own internal supply/demand dynamics over external factors such as competitors' rent, a company statement said, and therefore help eliminate the risk of collusion that could occur with manual pricing. The lawsuit that the RealPages software helps stagger lease renewals to artificially smooth out natural imbalances in supply and demand which discourages landlords from undercutting pricing achieved by the cartel. Property managers thus held vacant rental units unoccupied for periods of time, rejecting the historical adage to keep the heads in the beds to ensure that collectively there's not one period where in the market faces an oversupply of residential estate property for lease, keeping prices higher. It's such staggering help the group avoid a race to the bottom on rents. Wow. That is wild. Wild stuff. RealPage brags that clients who agree to provide RealPage real-time access to sensitive and non-public data experience rental rate improvements year over year between 5 and 12% in every market. RealPage encourages property companies to have daily calls with a RealPage pricing advisor and discourage deviating from rent prices suggested by the software. The lawsuit was filed by 4 law firms and a nonprofit, Justice Catalyst Law, and dedicated to developing cases and legal strategies that advance economic and social justice. Gary Smith Jr., one of the lawyers involved, said that the investigation into the case has been going on for more than a year. Today's lawsuit plausibly alleges that lessors, is that how you pronounce it? Whatever. Of rental units have been coordinated to drive rents up to unprecedented levels, exacerbating the nation's affordable housing crisis. RealPage counts some of the largest property managers in the country among its clients. Many favor cities where rent has been rising rapidly, according to ProPublica analysis of 5 of the country's top 10 property managers of 2020. All 5 use RealPage pricing software in at least some of the buildings, and together they control thousands of apartments in metro areas such as Denver, Nashville, Tennessee, Atlanta, and Seattle, where rents for a typical 2-bedroom apartment rose 30% or more between 2014 and 2019. Jesus Christ. Greystar and FPI Management each control hundreds of buildings in metro areas where rents have risen steeply in recent years. And Equity Residential, the Lincoln Property Company, and Mid-America Apartment Communities each manage dozens of buildings in high-growth markets. RealPage's clients may gravitate towards high-rent growth markets for several reasons. For instance, tenants in those areas will bear more rent hikes and so offer an opportunity to landlords to make more money. But RealPage says its software, formerly known as YieldStar, steers pricing that beats the market in areas where it operates. Find out how YieldStar can help outperform the market 3 to 7%, the RealPage urges potential clients on its website. Yeah. Wild. If you guys want to read this article for yourselves, take a look. Exactly why large landlords shouldn't exist. All right, folks. If you have a second and you want to support the channel, consider heading on over to the YouTube and subscribing to the YouTube channel. We're at 202 subscribers. We're doing great, folks, at least little by little. We'll get there. Any subscriber, one at a time, does help out a lot. So I appreciate that. If you have a second, just head on over to that YouTube link and hit the big red subscribe button. That's right. It's a great emote. U.S. Supreme Court temporarily blocks Clarence Thomas temporarily blocks Graham's election case testimony. Damn. It pays to have buddies in the Supreme Court. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas on Monday temporarily blocked a judge's order requiring Senator Lindsey Graham to testify to a grand jury in Georgia in a criminal investigation into whether President Trump and his allies unlawfully tried to overturn the 2020 election result in the state. All landlords are parasites, Drew. There was a landlord in my state who rented out apartments for below average price and got a letter from the finance ministry telling him that he has at least to ask the average or else it's tax evasion. You've got to be kidding me. Holy yikes. Damn. Nice. So even under the circumstances, if you try to do the right thing, you still get like messed with. That's right. Landlords are the real welfare queens. True. Was on a show called Realer Isrin, which means like real insanity. Jeez. Thomas put this case on hold pending further action from either the justice or the full Supreme Court on a request by Graham, a Republican from South Carolina and a Trump ally. Which again, this is a case. This is a criminal case that's happening right now in the state of Georgia to determine whether or not Trump and Trump allies attempted to subvert the election results of 2020. And that's the context that's important because like in other cases and things that like have gone before the Supreme Court and have involved the 2020 election, and Thomas's wife has been involved. It just seems like any case that's regarding the 2020 election, given the fact that there are massive conflicts of interest, given this context of, you know, Ginny Thomas, and the whole like election conspiracy thing that she's on, he should not be taking any of these cases. He should not be viewing any of this. This should be kicked off to somebody else. Specifically, Clarence Thomas should be immediately recusing himself on handling any cases regarding the 2020 election. Period. Graham filed the emergency application to the Supreme Court on Friday after the federal appeals court denied his request to block the questioning, which is like interesting because like, so he was ordered to, to appear for questioning and attempted to fight it, lost, got his appeal denied, and now having, friendly in the Supreme Court, has managed to delay his questioning. Thomas acted in the case because he is designated by the court to handle emergency requests from a region that includes Georgia. Yep, but if there are conflict of interest, if there is a good set of ethics, would dictate that he should not be touching any cases regarding the 2020 election. Graham has argued that his position as senator provides him immunity under the Constitution's speech or debate clause from having to answer questions related to his actions as part of the legislative process. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis has subpoenaed Graham to answer questions about phone calls he made to a senior Georgia election official. I assume he means Brad Raffensperger. In the weeks after the November 2020 election. Atlanta-based U.S. District Judge Lee Martin in May last month. Judge Lee Martin May last month. There we go. Narrowed the scope of questions that Graham must answer from the grand jury, ruling that he's protected from having to discuss investigatory fact-finding he was engaged in during his calls to state election officials. However, May said that he may be questioned about alleged efforts to encourage officials to throw out ballots or alleged communication with the Trump campaign. May rejected Graham's bid to avoid testifying altogether. Nice. The Atlanta-based 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on Thursday declined to block Graham's testimony pending an appeal. So he's already lost like 2 cases, 2 back-to-back rulings here. Yeah, I think that for sure, Justice Clarence Thomas should not be handling anything regarding the 2020 election. Graham is not a target of the investigation, but his testimony could shed further light on the coordination among Trump allies to reverse the election result. The senator's lawyer said in his application that the testimony would undisputedly center Senator Graham's official acts, phone calls he made in the course of his official work in the lead up to the critical vote under the Electoral Count Act. Trump continues to appear at rallies, repeating his false claims that the 2020 election won by Democrat Joe Biden was stolen from him, though through widespread voting fraud. As we found out recently from a judge and from a case that's going on, it looks like even Trump himself doesn't quite 100% believe the voter fraud thing. He's just using his supporters. The investigation was launched after Trump was recorded in a January 2nd, 2021 call pressuring Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to overturn the state's election results based on unfounded claims of voter fraud. During the phone call, Trump urged Raffensperger, a fellow Republican, to find enough votes to overturn his Georgia loss to Biden. The transcript of the call, this is the very perfect phone call. I just want to find, quote, 11,000. Oh man, can you imagine? Like, I'm trying to laugh, but like I'm trying not to laugh, but this is like a really serious matter. That the president of the United States and his allies were actively engaging in multiple schemes to subvert the election in multiple states. This can't get talked about enough, by the way. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is the number Trump needed to win. To win Georgia, Trump has denied any wrongdoing in the phone call. Legal experts have said that Trump's call may have violated at least 3 state election laws: conspiracy to commit fraud, criminal solicitation to commit election fraud, and intentional interference with performance of election duties. Which would make sense if you're trying to ask the head of, the person that does elections to, find the number of votes to win. Trump is just keeping his people's attention on what he wants their attention on, regardless of how popular it makes them. It's indoctrination. True, it's a cult. 100%. The Republican Party is a cult. 100%. Trump needs to get sued by Dominion. I don't know. Is he going off around like about Dominion? Because I haven't really heard him specifically make claims like using their name. Dominion is already suing Trump? Really? I thought like the biggest defendants on that civil case were Sidney Powell, Giuliani, My Pillow guy. They have sued him for defamation. Oh, okay, cool. He doesn't use their name anymore. He keeps it general. Yeah, probably because of the reason Craylio mentioned. Because if they're suing him for defamation, yeah. I think they're suing the Trump campaign or Trump associate, but not, I don't know if they named him as a defendant. I don't know. Trump is an expert at defamation suits. True. Anyways, Supreme Court, once again, acting super sketchy. Protecting Lindsey Graham for the meantime. For now. Former police officer Alexander Kueng oh no. Invasion of the bots. I wonder how I can stop that. Because that's from YouTube. Oh, I know how. There we go. I thought it was multiple bots, but no. Just one. Spamming. Okay. Yeah, it's a first. Yep, sometimes it happens on YouTube. Oh, XYZ, mostly for prawn? Gotcha. Well, makes sense. Makes sense that that's what their username would be. Probably a spam bot. There you go. You know you're making it on YouTube when you get spam bots for porn sites. There you go. I'm sure as hell wouldn't trust any site with that domain. True. I didn't even know. How can I stop this? Okay. One of the two former police officers scheduled to go on trial on Monday for the charges stemming from the death of George Floyd pleaded guilty as part of an agreement with prosecutors. Alexander Kueng pleaded guilty Monday morning to one count of aiding and abetting manslaughter after prosecutors and Kueng's defense attorney agreed to recommend a sentence of 42 months in prison, a spokesperson for the Hennepin County Court said. Dab time. All right. There we go. A second charge of aiding and abetting in second-degree unintentional murder will be dismissed against Kueng as part of his plea agreement. Judge Peter Cahill asked Kueng if he understood the plea agreement and informed him that he has a right to a trial. Kueng told Cahill that he understood the agreement and that no one had threatened to accept him. No, not that kind of dab? What? That's the kind of dab we do here. Look. I'll show you. Hold on. There you go. I don't think he partakes. Well, not really. I mean, sometimes I have like the CBD stuff, which is like available. That's the CBD stuff is where occasionally I'll go to. But yes, for the most part, no, I do not partake. A sentencing date for Kyung has not been immediately set, and Cahill ordered a pre-sentencing investigation. The plea was announced just as a joint state trial for Kyung and Thao was to begin with jury selection. The trial comes after the two former police officers reported to a separate prison this month to begin their federal sentences after being convicted in February on federal charges of violating Floyd's civil rights. Okay, so they got federal sentences, and now this is state. Both men had pleaded not guilty to charges of aiding and abetting in second-degree unintentional murder and aiding and abetting in manslaughter stemming from the Memorial Day 2020 death of Floyd, which ignited massive protests around the nation and world. Thao is proceeding with the trial but does not want a jury to render a verdict. Thao instead wants Cahill to decide his fate based on evidence stipulated by his attorney and the prosecution team. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison and Cahill will only decide a verdict for Thao on the charge of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. He said that in a statement, the prosecutors in his office have decided to hold back on the more serious charge of aiding and abetting second-degree murder until Cahill reaches a decision in what now will be a bench trial. Man. Ellison said that the state has agreed to dismiss the charge of aiding and abetting in second degree if Thao is convicted on the manslaughter charge. Cahill ordered the agreed upon evidence for him to review to be submitted by the court November 17th. After reviewing this evidence, the judge will take up 90 days to review it and render a verdict, the spokesperson said. The state trial for Kyung and Thao was initially scheduled for June of 2022, but Cahill delayed it over concerns that it would be difficult to seat an impartial jury given the pre-trial publicity. Earlier this year, Thao Kyung and a third defendant, former Minneapolis police officer Thomas Lane, were convicted on federal civil rights charges stemming from Floyd's death, and Lane later pleaded guilty to state charges. At the time of his decision, Cahill said postponing the trial should diminish the impact of this publicity on the defendant's right and ability to receive a fair trial from an impartial and unbiased jury. Lane pleaded guilty in May to state charges of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. In exchange for the plea, state prosecutors agreed to dismiss the top charge against him of aiding and abetting second-degree unintentional murder, similar to the plea accepted Monday by Kyung. Lane was sentenced in September to 3 years in prison, which he's serving concurrently with his federal sentence of 2.5 years. Did you know that police can shoot you now if you're holding a paintball gun because you can get pepper balls and ballistic balls and they're hard composite that can do serious harm? Yeah, that's some bullshit. Whatever. I mean, just more reasons to, like, kill people. That's basically it. They really don't need a reason to shoot you these days. True! J. Alexander Kyung is now the second officer involved in Floyd's death to accept responsibility through a guilty plea. The acknowledgement hopefully can bring comfort to Floyd's family and bring out communities closer to a new era of accountability and justice. Kyung, Thao, and Lane were convicted in February by a federal jury on charges of violating George Floyd's civil rights by failing to intervene or provide medical aid as their senior officer. Derek Chauvin kneeled on the back of his neck while he was handcuffed for more than 9 minutes. Kyung, a rookie cop at the time of Floyd's death, was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, followed by 2 years of supervised release. Thao, who had been a 9-year veteran in the Minneapolis Police Department at the time of Floyd's death, was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison, also followed by 2 years of supervised release. Police can shoot you if they feel threatened, and they're trained to be acutely paranoid in all situations, right? Because they're trained to view as everybody as a potential enemy. Floyd suffered critical injuries when he was placed in handcuffs in a prone position on the pavement after being accused of attempting to use a fake $20 bill, which, by the way, till this day, I don't even know if that was like even true. If he actually even had a fake $20 bill, the money that he had was even fake to begin with. To buy cigarettes, videos from security and police body cams and civilian phone cameras showed Floyd begging for his life and complaining as he could not breathe, as Chauvin held onto his knee on the back of his neck, rendering him unconscious and without a pulse, according to prosecutors. Floyd was then taken to a hospital and pronounced dead. Chauvin was convicted in the state court last year of second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to more than 22 years in prison. They never confirmed if he had any counterfeit cash. Shoot now, maybe ask questions later. Police will investigate ourselves, and we did nothing wrong. True, that's a perfectly good system. There's no possible way that could be abused. It wouldn't matter even if he did. True. No, I'm just saying, like, even after all that, like, he never even actually, we never even knew if he actually even did what, was alleged, which is like, I guess, like the cherry on top of this whole thing. But whatever. Yeah, but you're right. It doesn't matter regardless. While Chauvin's state trial was live streamed gavel to gavel due to concerns of COVID pandemic limiting the public access to the courtroom, cameras are not allowed at the trial for Keung and Thao. Cahill ruled in April that conditions are materially different from those that the court confronted from November of 2020 through April of 2021. The 46-year-old Chauvin also pleaded guilty in December to federal charges violating Floyd's civil rights and was sentenced in July to 21 years in federal prison. We don't execute counterfeiters on site, or at least we aren't supposed to. That's true. It turns out that, like, regardless of the situation, cops aren't there to be Judge Dredd. I almost gotten arrested for using counterfeit cash, which I got from another store. It's possible that he had it and may have received the counterfeit cash inadvertently. True. Pizza delivery drivers do have a more dangerous job than cops. The real heroes of America, the thin yellow line, the thin cheesy line. It's the only thing holding us from hunger. Okay. They're the only thing keeping us from hunger. During their federal trial, Lane, Keung, and Thao each took witness stand and attempted to shift the blame to Chauvin, who is a 19-year veteran of the Minneapolis Police Department. Lane told the jury that Chauvin deflected all suggestions to help Floyd, while Keung testified that Chauvin was my senior officer and I trusted his advice. And Thao attested that he would trust a 19-year veteran to figure it out, as, he's killing somebody. Cool. Yeah, maybe they just took the plea deals because it was probably more favorable to them, given, the obvious footage that exists. It wasn't going to bode out well for them. But yeah. That's the update on this one. Student debt relief moving full speed ahead despite the GOP-led lawsuits, Education Secretary said. Well, gee. Maybe this kind of energy would have been nice with the caveat of just saying, like, you know what? Why don't we just eliminate all student debt and just, like, full speed ahead? Like, F it. Let these lawsuits come. Let them prove that they have any standing. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona said the Biden administration is moving full speed ahead, preparing to implement its federal student debt forgiveness program, days after federal appeal court hit the pause button on the administration's efforts. Cardona said in a video posted Saturday that the administration is not deterred by lawsuits that seek to block its relief program. In an op-ed published on Saturday in USA Today, Cardona said that the Education Department is moving full speed ahead with the preparations for the lawsuit. For the preparations for the lawful implementation of the program. President Biden and his administration will never stop fighting for the millions of hardworking students and borrowers across the country, no matter how many elected officials or lawsuits try to stop us. This program will help borrowers by providing relief following the economic disruptions caused by the pandemic. Yeah. But the poor predatory lending servers. Loan service. True. On Friday, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals halted the implementation of the administration's program while it considers an appeal from officials in 6 GOP-led states whose lawsuit against the program was dismissed by a federal judge last week. The ruling was issued just days after the administration began accepting applications from borrowers to cancel as much as $20,000 in federal-backed loans. These are for Pell Grants. $10,000, I think, is like the standard for federal student loans, and $20,000 if you got Pell Grants. Cardona also took aim at arguments by the 6 GOP-led states, which alleged that the administration program is unlawful. He said that the same GOP attorney generals and officials did not oppose giving billions of dollars in coronavirus pandemic relief for states' business owners, nor trillions in tax cuts for the highest-earning businesses during the Trump administration. True. Very true. Nice. Some of the nicest people I know work for payday loan companies, and I don't understand how they can. It's pretty horrible. Who will think of Sally Mae? True. True. How inconsiderate. I used to have a friend who worked with that company. With a company, with the payday loan company and stuff. It's pretty bad. Needless to say, that person does not work there anymore. Construction workers and flaggers in construction jobs have more dangerous jobs than cops. True. In a nice update, Georgia early voting surpasses 2020 by 20% on Saturday. So that's good. That's good. This is very good news. Georgians are breaking records in early voting with turnout on Saturday, surpassing the 2020 election sixth day of early voting by 20% to 79,682. Voters who cast ballots on Saturday also marked a 159% increase from the first Saturday of early voting in 2018, according to the Georgia Secretary Office. Nice. It's pretty cool. If you know anybody that's in the state of Georgia currently, and I think like a lot of other states too, if you know anybody, encourage them to vote if they haven't already, and take people to vote with them. This is very important. It is imperative that Republicans lose. True, that's also a good point, Maple Leaf Dragon. Okay, I think that this is a good segue. If anything,
by the George Floyd family. Kanye West is now being sued, apparently, by the George Floyd family. So put aside all of the Kanye West radical, crazy anti-Semitism that we've seen over the past couple of weeks. This is...
put aside that, the fact that you're platforming Candace Owens, who fully supports this Ben Shapiro. Sure, whatever.
Is ridiculous. It is ridiculous that George Floyd's family is now suing Kanye West. They announced that...
Really? Why? Why is it ridiculous? Kanye West is literally making defamatory statements that aren't true.
They're filing a $250 million lawsuit against Kanye West over his recent statement about George Floyd's death. The rapper, who goes by Ye, erroneously declared on a podcast Floyd died from fentanyl, not as a result of police brutality.
Correct, which the facts of the case ended up proving that Chauvin killed him. The facts of the case proved that Chauvin killed him. That's what happened.
According to Yahoo.
Are we just gonna skip over that?
Entertainment
Wait,
now.
I think that's like a serious, like, that's seriously like the biggest point here. The reason why Floyd's family is suing Kanye is because he's making defamatory statements, saying things that aren't true, which is what's happening. And then you call it ridiculous. Okay. Whatever, dude. Thinking that beard is going to make him manly? True. You need a splash screen for a warning about trigger content from Shapiro and others like him. That's true. I can't stand his voice. Me neither. If I have to suffer through this, we all do.
Again, erroneously declared on a podcast that Floyd died from fentanyl? Erroneously? I mean, this happens to be under dispute on a factual level.
Nope.
Just because a jury...
Nope. Wrong. Wrong. 100% wrong. It's on the freaking reports, dude. It's on the freaking reports, dude.
Rule that homicide was responsible for the death of George Floyd does not mean that you are not allowed to have the opinion that the jury got it wrong in the United States.
No. It's not that it's not about opinion. It's about him stating this as a fact in a defamatory way. He's literally what is it slander? I don't know. The one that where you speak. Slander, not libel, right? I think libel's written. Whatever.
United States. A jury also ruled that O.J. Simpson was innocent. O.J. Simpson happened to have been the murderer of his ex-wife and Ronald Goldman. So just because a jury...
Wait. This has nothing to do with the case. This has nothing to do with the George Floyd case. These are completely different cases. The only thing that's common... slander. Okay. The only thing that's common here is that they were both criminal cases. That's the only commonality here.
Finds that a thing happened does not mean that is now the factually established reality.
But there's evidence that we can look at. You can look at the autopsy report results. You can look at the testimony from the other officers who immediately pointed the finger at him. Or tried to, even though they were all guilty. They all knew it. They all knew it.
And the fact is that George Floyd did have a significant amount of fentanyl in his system.
Not relevant to what actually killed him. Turns out, it was Chauvin.
According to the tox report, he had 11 NGMLs of fentanyl.
Doesn't matter.
And he had another 5.6 NGMLs of norfentanyl in his system.
Doesn't matter.
The tox report and the report after his death, the report on his body, suggested there were no life-threatening injuries identified. There were no actual injuries of anterior muscles of the neck or the laryngeal structures.
Okay, now I know he is lying because it explicitly talks about the possibility of his they literally brought this up in one of the trials. In the trials, I think of the cops or in the other cops or Chauvin. But they actually brought out experts, multiple experts, to testify. He's not only justifying, like he's basically like disputing what's like pretty obvious and known. It is bullshit. Echo Rest Dragon. So 100% made up. Like he just literally made that up because like the trial is there. People can go watch the expert testimonies and people can go find the actual reports. Okay. It's 100% made up. Yeah, not only is he excusing like these piece of shit cops, but he's also excusing Kanye West as well. And by extension, he's basically complaining that Floyd's family is intending to sue Kanye for the obvious defamatory statements that he's made. Yeah. And of course, none of these videos will have a link to the actual autopsy report. None of these links will have any points to clips of the trial, of the actual trial. None of these will have witness testimony that's available. Look at this. It's just shill stuff. It's just shill stuff.
There was no facial, oral, mucosal, or conjunctival petechiae. There was no chest wall soft tissue injuries, rib fractures, vertebral column injuries, or visceral injuries. Now, the reason I assume that Ye has been declaring this is because, of course, Ye has been promoting Candace Owens' documentary.
Right. And of course, he's also, which you just mentioned at the beginning, has been promoting anti-Semitism and is being assisted by Candace Owens, who you employ. Okay. I'm trying to see where he's getting this from. Fractally derived. Well, come on, you know it's true. Oh, I see what he's saying. Okay. Um, a 12-minute video with over 20 conspiracies? That's funny. No, I see what he's saying. Now that I'm actually reading this, what does this even mean? Oh, so the things that he's naming are like things like heart failure. Yeah, no shit. He didn't die of heart failure. We know that. He also didn't have any of this oral mucosa. Like, yeah, of course. And there was no incisions or subcutaneous. Yeah, obviously. None of this actually proves Ben's original claim. That's the problem. Switch your brain over to gullible conservative and you'll start. Yeah. Like he's just reading stuff, but like none of this really. So this is what he's talking about. He's just reading off like the top like things. None of these prove his point. You have to like Google and understand what each one of these are. And yeah, no shit. He didn't die of like a heart attack or heart disease. The problem was the position that he was in restricted or facilitated his death because of the way he was being held. That was the issue. The position that he was in. I hope, he stops being rewarded for this. I don't hope he gets paid well.
Documentary is worth watching. It is quite good.
No.
The greatest lie ever sold. So what exactly does the documentary say about all? Well, why don't we begin with this? Here's the Floyd family lawyer on suing Kanye West.
I wonder if this will mean that Kanye West's comments about George Floyd will gain even more attention. Does that factor into the decision to move forward with this lawsuit?
Well, we're going to move forward, and whether or not it receives more attention, we think it's a very important issue in this country.
Yeah, also, we know that experts also testified. I took 2 minutes to find an independent autopsy saying he died of asphyxia, so how to know ignorant does someone have to be? Yeah, the thing that he's reading, The thing that he's reading was the original autopsy report, which doesn't A, prove his point, and B, they did an independent autopsy, the family did, and there are multiple testimonies in the trial that you can go back and listen to get a better explanation, okay? Yes, because of the position he was in, thank you. Positional asphyxiation, thank you. That's exactly it. Yes. I just didn't know how to word it. There you go. Thank you.
I mean, people are talking about free speech, but people also need to understand the limitations. If you're going to use other people's name for profit, if you're going to profit from other people's pain, if you're going to re-traumatize people, then you have to pay for it, just like Alex Jones paid for it in the verdict against him for nearly $1 billion.
Okay, I'm sorry, but first of all, defamation does not apply to those who have passed away. This is a legal matter. You can't defame somebody who's already died. So there's that. Also, it happens to be that.
So what did Alex Jones get clapped for? What are you talking about, dude? Emotional distress or whatnot? Yeah, I think that would fall in there.
Or at least the possibility of truth is a defense to any defamation claim in the first place. We'll get some more on this in just 1 second. First, with everything going on in the world right now, you know, the crappy economy, and the complete. Still love it as much as the sleep for your body and sleep type.
Shut up. Shut up.
5-star review. /Ben to get the greatest lie ever sold, which you should go check out over at Daily Wire. Plus, is Candace's new documentary.
They had to have the jury believe that it was a neck restraint, it was the knee on the neck, it was asphyxiation.
But it was.
That killed George Floyd. However, there was a ton of evidence that George Floyd consumed a toxic, lethal cocktail of fentanyl.
Really? So, shoot. So,
Kanye West is now.
That Derek Chauvin intentionally, continuously inculcated grains that George Floyd consumed.
Okay, so why, if that's the case, why wasn't all this brought up in court? Like, why did that defense fail? Why did that defense fail? Because they did bring that up. God, you spray Febreze? Dang it.
Kanye West is now.
Was a ton of evidence that George Floyd consumed a toxic, lethal cocktail of fentanyl and methamphetamine.
Jesus Christ.
Did it appear that Mr. Floyd said, "I ate too many drugs"?
Yes, it did. Let's put it in perspective. 3 grains.
I love how he only, like, plays, like, that one clip. Like, I wonder, like, is he gonna play, like, the copious amount of, like, expert testimony, too? Why didn't this work, if that's the case? Because, like I said, they did bring it up, and that defense didn't fly.
Of fentanyl on the head of a lead pencil, enough to kill you, enough to kill me. And so they had to continuously inculcate the public to believe that Derek Chauvin intentionally, premeditatedly murdered.
Whoa! Whoa, slow down, buddy. Intentionally premeditated? Like, he wasn't stalking George Floyd, my dude. To my knowledge, he wasn't, like, waiting at the place and hoping George Floyd would show up and he would be there with his, like, officer buddies. That's not what he got arrested. That's not what he got clapped for in the trial. That's not what was argued in the trial at all.
Murdered George Floyd, and drugs had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Because the final cause of death, as multiple experts have shown, and an independent autopsy has revealed, or has shown, to add to that, was exactly that. It was positional asphyxiation. He's making a huge different claim, as if Chauvin was like waiting for him there that day. He was premeditating, was waiting for him. No, dude. If he had toxic levels of fentanyl and meth, he would have been able to overpower all the cops because he would be metabolically supercharged and virtually immune to pain. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, yeah, that would be a good point. Like, they tried to bring this defense up. It didn't really fly against other testimonies.
As Lindsay and the toxicologist presented that awful testimony.
Do you recall describing the level of fentanyl as a fatal level of fentanyl?
Carpet Packs, how's it going? Oh, yeah, that's true. It's not PCP. I don't know my drugs. I'm gonna be honest.
I recall describing it in other circumstances. It would be a fatal level, yes.
In other circumstances, Ben's own freaking evidence isn't like exactly very conclusive here.
In other circumstances. Had Mr. Floyd been home alone in his locked residence with no evidence of trauma, and the only autopsy finding was that fentanyl level, then yes, I would certify his death as due to fentanyl toxicity.
Yeah. No shit. His own like witness is saying that like if there was no evidence of like trauma, the keyword there being trauma, if there was no other evidence of trauma, the only thing that we know is that he was like by himself. It was because of freaking Kanye West, Carpet Packs, or Ye West. Floyd's family is threatening to sue him, and Ben Shapiro is rushing to the defense of Ye by bringing out the good old fentanyl argument. So here we are.
Okay, so again, all that is straight from the documentary. There's nothing false about anything in the documentary.
There is nothing false about any of it, just a whole bunch of misrepresented shit. And like the one clip you played was like experts who even they said that, you know, there was evidence of trauma, which would then lead them to question the overdose narrative to begin with. Plus, notice how he never showed any of the other testimony that happened in the trial. Yeah, just shoe his dipshit ass. True.
Documentary. All of that is well established. All of it is well verified.
It's not. It isn't.
The attempt to try to suggest that you're not allowed to say this sort of stuff is, in fact, a restraint on free speech. The lawyers.
Oh, wait, and the caveat on that is not only is he bringing out the good old fentanyl defense, but he's bringing out the free speech bullshit. All these fascists grifting off the death of their son owe them money. Hell yeah, I agree.
For Floyd's family, by the way, have said they're not going to file a defamation lawsuit because, of course, they don't actually have the standard. They're going to say intentional infliction of emotional distress, which
yes, just like the Alex Jones trial. Yeah, get fucked.
No, that is not going to fly under any circumstances. The fact
really?
Fact is that the attempt that is ongoing right now to basically verboten anything being said in defiance of the narrative on things like George Floyd or Black Lives Matter is
it's not verboten. It's just wrong, and you are causing emotional distress off of lies, my dude. Just because you can say the things does not mean that there are no consequences for saying the things. Okay? What you don't like about the aspect, the thing that you don't like about this whole thing is the aspect of consequences. That's the thing. And as we saw, as Ye enlightened us, what free speech really means to you, Ben and company, and the people that you allowed to be platformed, and the people that you support directly or indirectly. What you mean by free speech is your right. Is your right to be as bigoted, as much of a bigoted, racist piece of shit as you want to be, and have no consequences. That's what free speech means to these people. Verboten is Nazi jacketing his detractors. Sheesh.
Reason why
I did not catch that. I did not catch that one.
Candace made the documentary The Greatest Lie Ever Sold, which again you should go check out over at Daily Wire Plus. By the way, some of the things you're not supposed to talk about with regard to George Floyd's death is the simple fact that a different angle shows that Derek Chauvin's knee is actually on the back of George Floyd, not on the back of George Floyd's neck. And you can't...
Yeah, it's German for forbidden. I thought that's what he meant. Forbidden. He's crying oppression. True, that's all they have. That's all they have. It's like complex victim complexes when the reality is they're the ones who want to who want to and are doing the oppressing. That's the reality of it. It's like these are the same people that cry about how the mainstream media silences and cancels conservatives while having the biggest platforms. It's exactly the same. It's like this constant, perpetual victim complex in every facet. It's a part of the spiel.
You can actually see his knee is on George Floyd.
Yeah, and now we're making full circle to like the Steven Crowder defense. Nice, well done, Ben.
Shoulder.
Are you going to show that? And why wasn't that at the trial? That's interesting. Why didn't that defense work in the trial, Ben? You can say all we want. We don't have to listen to him, though. It's tragic how many followers he has. True.
It was characterized as such by witnesses for the prosecution in that particular case.
And why didn't that defense work?
Again, truth is of very little consequence when you are attempting to establish a narrative about the supposed racism of the United States more broadly. Guys, the rest of the show...
What? Okay, dude. Whatever. This is wild. So this was half like him bringing out the classic like fash defenses for the whole George Floyd case, and of course shilling his garbage while doing so. Pretty disgusting.
Show is continuing. Now you're not going to want to miss it. We'll be getting into a company...
Nah. Go F yourself. No, I don't think German automatically means Nazi. It's just like, it's weird that what Carpet's pointing out is that it's just weird that he made those choices. When he didn't really have to, right? You could just say like you're not allowed to talk about it, or you're forbidden to say. He's just pointing out, or they're just pointing out that it's just strange that that's where he went to when he didn't have to, if that makes sense. Not that like German automatically, every time you hear a German word automatically means Nazi dog whistle. That's not their point. Anyways. All right, folks, we did it. We went through all the things that we were supposed to go through. A couple of things. First of all, I don't think that there'll be a stream on Thursday. I'll keep you folks updated on that. So join the Discord. If there's a announcement, I will make it there. Also, again, if you haven't, head on over to the YouTube and hit the subscribe button. It really does help us out. Make sure you hit the follow button here. Spread the word far and wide that this is one of the chillest places to be for the news, the politics, Monday through Thursday. 5 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be here tomorrow, doing the news, doing the politics. So if you just got here, I'm sorry, Carpe. I'm sorry. Another couple of things. Make sure you follow some of these folks here with the diamonds. All right. If you see somebody with the diamond, chances are they are a content creator of some sort. So make sure you... No, that's not how it goes. There we go. So make sure you follow some of these wonderful folks. I unfortunately got to get going. I am hungry and tired. Both of these things. I appreciate you guys hanging out. If you guys hit the follow button, you get 5 free emotes, including Bakita the cat. How cute is that, huh? Alright, folks. Enjoy your dinner then. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Carpet Packs. Thank you, Alio, for joining. Thank you, SMTDOS, Maple Leaf Dragon. Thank you. I appreciate that. Echo Resto Dragon. Cosmic Seeking. Appreciate all of you folks mixing it up in chat. Thank you guys. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love y'all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya! Michael Hassler, thank you. Thank you for mixing it up. Alright, folks, we're heading out. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.